All right, we can get started. So today's deep dive slash UI review, Brad's going to cover some of the work with the default capsule, and then Yvonne is going to cover error handling for manifest import work. So I'll hand it over to Brad.
So what I was going to show is a little bit about the default capsule work that we've been working on. It really originated from this Mozilla. Okay, so is that better?
Thank you for calling the Red Hat Conference Center. Enter the conference code, followed by the pound or hash sign.
Okay, is that better? Okay, cool. Okay, so what we're going to show is the startings of a default capsule. The issue basically arose from this Bugzilla new host form does not populate environment content view drop-down fields. Effectively, what the issue was is that when we publish and promote a content view that contains Puppet content, we create a Puppet environment, but we didn't actually associate a location to it. So when the user would go into the new host form, which we'll show in just a bit, the view and environment was not selectable. So in discussions on how to solve this Bugzilla, we talked about introduction of the default capsule. And this is a gist that I put out there to kind of just document some notes as I was working on it and discussing it with Yvonne and others. So effectively, every Katello install is going to have a default capsule installed, basically a smart proxy that exists there. So the thought was to basically leverage that and to look at what locations are associated with the target environment. So like if I'm publishing a content view to a library, find me any capsules that have library and use the locations from those to assign to the Puppet environment that I've created. So what the default capsule is it's just leveraging that smart proxy that's on the main Katello server. The capsule, when you look at the smart proxy, will not have the pulse running. That's intentional because the server itself already has a pulse server on it and will provide that functionality. So you wouldn't be doing things like manually adding and removing environments to the default capsule, nor would you be synchronizing any content using the default capsule. So you'll see in the demo that those capabilities are basically rejected if you try to use them. So what we've done is try to make it automatically assign things to the default capsule, things like organizations, location, lifecycle environments, etc. And then on the initial attempt is when we create the Puppet environment during publish and promote, we'll use the location information to assign to it. This is the beginnings, as I mentioned, of this work, and I imagine that as we continue to move down the road, we're going to find other points of integration where this could be useful or will be useful. So right now there is a pull request open, kind of describes some of the things that are being done and that I'm going to show. And I'll probably just go ahead and walk through a demo of it. So let's go ahead and jump over to my Katello install. So I've seeded my install with some data. It's very bare as far as what is there. I do have a couple of organizations, Acme and ECME, and then I do have a couple of locations, Acme, ECME, and then the default location. I do have some lifecycle environments that are provisioned in each of those two organizations. which you'll see as an ECME or an ACME dev and ACME test, and then an ECME dev and an ECME test. And hopefully my server will run a little quicker than this as we go through the demo. So you can see that there's some data seeded here. And the next thing I want to show is, so as far as the default, go ahead.
Mike's asking.
Is that better? Oh yeah, it looks really small. Stretch this out. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I want to show is that this particular install, I don't have a capsule.
Otherwise, the menu is going
Okay, so I don't have any smart proxies or capsules installed currently, and the reason is that I removed one because I wanted to show you what happens when you create one, specifically the default capsules. So let's go ahead and just create the default. So it's going to be for Katello because it's running on the same server. It's so big on the screen. Okay, so you'll see that it created a capsule. It has a puppet feature. It doesn't have a pulp feature. We don't want it to. But under the scenes, what happens? Go ahead and go over here, and we'll grab the first smart proxy, which is our capsule. And if we take a look, gosh, that's going to be really small too. Let me see if I can increase that. Control plus. Yeah, it's good zoom. Okay. So what we'll see is now I have Katello deval as there is my default capsule. If I take a look at it, I should see what happens is it now has all organizations assigned to it. It should have the default location associated to it. And it should have all of the lifecycle environments associated to it. So basically, we're seeding the default capsule with lots of information. Okay.
Is the default just the first one that you make?
Yeah, so right now, there's actually a couple of issues that we need to solve in the long term. So right now, the default capsule is being identified by the host name. So it looks to say, if the capsule has the same host name as the server, then use that as the default.
Okay.
Okay, so that's for the capsule. We should improve that in the future, so that it's not tied directly to the host name. The second one is the location name. So identifying the default location is being identified based on the name equal default. So we need a way to actually specify this location is the default, because right now we don't have a way to do that. So right now there's a couple of caveats in how we do that determination. I don't believe it would.
We hit an issue.
We can run a
with
test with that, but I don't believe it would.
We hit an issue with the Summit build where the host name of the capsule or the smart proxy was not the same as the satellite, and it caused the problem. I mean, it's a temporary thing that we're going to do.
Yeah, well, in the installer right now, and the installer can change, so you can specify name, but right now the installer is going to make it basically host name, so it wouldn't be a local host or some other random name. So right now a user would have to go in and purposely change it. Okay, so the next thing I want to take a look at is, okay, so we have some data seeded. Let's go create a content view. Let me first show. I just have one product with a repository that has a Puppet module in it. and we're going to use that to create our content view, which will generate a Puppet environment. So basically a product named Puppet with a repo uploads, and it has one module in it. And we'll go create our content view. Go ahead and show us that we don't really have any Puppet environments while this is working. We'll go ahead and add our module to it. Okay, so we see we don't have any Puppet environments today. Okay. So we'll go ahead and publish our version. This should be pretty quick since there's only one Puppet module in it. Okay, so at this point we should now have a Puppet environment that got created. It's there for library, and we should see it has the default location tied to it. So during the publish, it will get the default location since that's the one that is currently looking for library. Now if we came over to do a new host, we should see that that data has gotten seeded. So it's using Acme location. Right now it's just picking the first location. So if I select the default, I should now see that, hey, I do have library and I have a Puppet view, content view. So I no longer have to go in and manually do that location setting on the Puppet environment. Okay, and same for like if I promote that content view now. Come back and take a look at our environments. We should see that promoted ones also have their location set to default. Okay, so those associations happen. If I came in and actually created another lifecycle environment, okay, so now I have another environment. If I reload my capsule here and take a look at environments, I should see now I have Acme Prod got associated with it. If I were to drop that out, if I came and removed the environment, I should see the same thing. Now it's removed. So environments will get added and removed from the default capsule. Same for organizations. So we'll create ICME. And we'll reload and take a look at organizations. The idea is we're just managing or maintaining the information on the default capsule. So you can see ICME got added. Now we'll go ahead and just take it out. You can see the ICME goes away. The one case that we do need to address, and Justin mentioned in the PR request as well, is for locations. We should also do similar associations on the Puppet environment. So now we see ICME is gone. So that's what I want to show as far as like that portion, but I also want to show just a little bit on the CLI. So since the default capsule is a special thing, you can still do like read-only commands on it. Make that bigger too, thank you. Okay, so you can do read-only commands on it. So if I can list it, I can do info. Oops. I can do content commands. that are read-only are basically listing stuff, so like available lifecycle environments. I should see for available lifecycle environments there aren't any because we've been adding and removing them. I should be able to list the lifecycle environments. I should not be allowed to do anything that alters the default capsule. So if I tried to add a lifecycle environment to one, I should be denied, saying that actions aren't allowed for the default capsule. Same for remove and synchronize. So you're basically going to be denied doing anything that's going to change the default capsule, because the intent is that the Katello server will manage it for you.
Can you rerun the info command?
Mm-hmm. With the correct parameters.
I was just curious if it indicated in the info at all whether what you were looking at was the default capsule or not.
No, and I think that's where we probably should add something, more than just using the name as the definition to say, hey, this is the default, and actually show it. It's similar to like on the list, we don't really show a lot of details, and there's a Bugzilla on this. It shows the name and the URL, but you might not want to know some additional information like what features it has and such. Actually, I think it was this one, lifecycle environments. Doesn't really tell you where they're coming from, like what organization are they tied to.
Yeah, I think there's a bug up now.
There is. So any questions? So you're curious how it works when you have 2+ capsules set up? Yeah, that's right. So I mean, today, when you add a new capsule, it's going to go in and just update the organizations, locations, etc. I tested it out in the production environment. I don't have another capsule tied to this environment because I was switching it back and forth between some bug fixing, so I ended up having to reset my data. And again, this is just the start. I could see where we can probably use this also for installation media and other concepts that we're trying to integrate with. Okay, if not, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Yvonne.
Hello. So I will try to share my screen. Okay, so what I would like to show you today on this deep dive is are the improvements in regards to errors that occur while orchestrating with Dynflow. So as you all know, the errors in Dynflow were always causing the running task to get into post state, and it was by purpose or design so that we don't allow the users to harm the system even more than it's already in. So when the task is not finished, then there is quite a big chance that there is not consistency in the database, and trying to do something else with the resource that a task failed against might lead to unexpected results that might be hard to get out of. So this is the idea behind the logs and why they are there at the first place. On the other side, there are errors, some errors within the orchestration are kind of expected, and what we need to add is be able to mark these actions that are expected to fail sometimes and don't cause the data inconsistency to be handled in special way, not locking the resource to be able to do the tasks after the failure. So one of the examples here, and typical one that many folks already hit, is when trying to import the wrong manifest or import the same manifest twice, the PAL or the Katello pin reported an error, and the task stayed by default in the post state, effectively locking any other operation like importing any some other manifest. And so one had to go to the task details or the Dynflow console and resolve it manually. And for errors that occur quite often, this is not the best way to deal with things. So for this, we added into Dynflow an ability to, or different strategies for dealing with errors. So by default, the strategy is pause, but we added a new strategy that is called skip. So I can show you in the code first. So there is kind of been provide a manifest import. It's not here, or it is. Yeah, it's in the abstract async task. Because we use abstract async task for all the one step or nothing async actions, something similar to the delayed jobs. This is not really the expanded Dynflow workflow. So we don't have basically ability to do anything else. There is only one step, so we can just skip it. So there is this rescue strategy method that the Dynflow looks into when the execution plan fails and asks basically what to do next. So by default, there is a pause, so it means do nothing and get the execution plan into pause phase. But the new strategy here is a skip, which means, okay, we acknowledge here is an error, we will report that, but don't block the execution plan from continuing. With this in place, when I now go, I have a manifest here. Just first open it again and upload it, and I have already done this before. What I get, hopefully, is the error importing the same as existing data. This is a message from the Katello pin directly. So we also look into the message that the Katello pin sends and report it back to the user. So now we should have basically more information on the errors that we get or the users get. Connected to this, another issue that we had is when there is an error, it's hard to get additional, or it was hard to get additional information on the error and without going to the Dynflow console, which the Dynflow console is really low-level stuff, and that's one of the reasons it's disabled by default. So I've also made or get more details into the task information in this rich page from the foreman task itself. So now, before there was just one page full of data, but the information about errors and other stuff was not there available. So now, if there is some task in error or warning state, the warning state means that there was an error while running it, but the failed steps were skipped either automatically because there was this skip rescue strategy, or you can do the same manually from the Dynflow console, but in both cases you get the result as warning. It means that you don't expect that the task did all you needed, but on the other hand, there should be no inconsistencies, especially if this was done automatically with the rescue strategy. And if you go to errors, now you can see what errors were or occurred while running the task. So this is low-level stuff on purpose, so that this is more like debug information, but it's really priceless for debugging and for us to know what really went wrong. So we know that this action failed, this is the input that the action got, potential output, we'll see probably this later, and the exception that was or caused the error itself, as well as the backtrace from the Rails app. So this should help us with debugging and the users with filing the issues. So this is the second thing. Besides the manifest import, the other thing that I've looked into was the repo synchronization, where there was an issue or is an issue when you provide bad URL of the repository, and URL that doesn't exist, for example. You again get the task into the post state with the error on importing or syncing the repository, and you had to go to the Dynflow console and resume it manually. And since this is also something that might happen just by mistake, or the repository might be temporarily unavailable or something like that, and since not being able to sync doesn't introduce any inconsistency in terms of having it in one place. It's not the same as when you create a user and you need to create in Pulp and Candlepin. In this case, you just try it, and you can try it many times. And if it fails, we can continue and try it later. So I've applied the same here, and I will not able to show you this because my Pulp workers, for some reason, refuse to pick up any new async tasks. But for purposes of this demo or deep dive, it's actually a good thing, because the last thing that I've added just recently, maybe 2 hours ago, while adding the additional data to the task page, is ability to cancel the Pulp async tasks. One of the reasons for that was basically the instability of the Pulp tasks right now, and it's probably worth spending a few hours on that, just giving another tool set for us to work with the tasks. And it will also be useful for canceling the synchronization or package installation. So we now have an ability to cancel the subtask that is running on the Pulp. So I will start syncing the repository, and since I know that the Pulp is somehow broken, I will get this long-running task. So as a user, I would probably wait a bit longer till I will notice that something is probably not good. So I can go here, this new link here, to more details, which will just take me to the details page of the task, and there is a new tab with running steps, which is similarly to the errors. It contains the information, the low-level information for now. We could improve that, but it gives you really information on what's the task that is running right now. and it might be also useful maybe for the product or content view promotion with the capsules metadata or other things. If you don't know what's going wrong or what's going on that long, you can go here, see the running steps, and in case the running step is cancelable, you will have this button available, and you can click on it, and this will basically propagate to Pulp, calling the task to be cancelled. So you can see now that the task is waiting, so we can hit and cancel. So this was the repository syncing, and we can wait a bit for what will happen. It takes some time because we don't poll that often after the task is running for a longer time. So it seems, but you already see that the state is cancelled. We'll stop the auto loading, and that will be able to continue. Since I finished this just a few minutes ago, there might be some places to improve. Okay, so now Danflow noticed that the task is cancelled. So this is the information about that. And because we cancelled a skippable step, and we expect this step to fail every now and then, we continued to another task or another step in the execution plan. In this case, is the distribution publish. And since my pulp is still broken, so this task will not finish either, so I need to cancel this as well. So this is not something that one should use every day, but if the situation occurs, this is a way how to make the things moving and try to debug the stuff. And if we know that there is something wrong and we can't do anything with the steps, then we can call and cancel the task. In this case, you can see that I've hit it here, so I will do it again. In this case, I tried to cancel the distribution publish action, but since the distributor publish action is not marked as skippable, when I cancel it, it causes the step to fail, but the resume strategy for this step is to pause. So when I cancel and wait for that to propagate into Pulp, we should get the state of the Danflow task as paused. So there's this state cancel. I still don't know why it doesn't mark this as failed. Okay, so it is now. So you can see that in this case we didn't have to do or click the skip because it skipped for us automatically. In this case, this error is not expected, and we want to make sure this finishes, so we don't skip that automatically. And we will need to do manually in the Danflow console if we are really sure that it's the best way to deal with the things. So that's probably it. I don't know if something else. In the details, one thing that you might miss is another debug information on what resources is this task running against, and so if the task is running or in the post phase, these resources, or especially this with flag exclusive true, will not be other tasks will not probably be able to work on them, and some other low-level stuff about the input and output of the entry action. Okay, so I saw some questions. But it doesn't seem it's related to this deep dive. Are there questions on the Hangout, or do you have some? Okay, so one suggestion from Ogi is to be able to multiple select tasks and perform force unlock, and I would like to avoid this multi. I could imagine things like multi-resume, but really the unlocks are the last things if you are really sure that you this is the only thing you can do, because there's a really big risk, and if you press on the unlock, you will get model that probably nobody reads, but we warned you. And okay, I can. So I can go from here. So if you click the first unlock, as the task might be still running, and you should use it unless you are really sure the task got stuck. And the other thing is that if it got stuck, it's still, there might be other steps that need to be finished for the for it all to be in healthy state. So that's why this is some kind of last things to do, and that's why I would like to avoid the bulk actions. The bulk action for resume is the only that would make sense, because resume is the preferred way to fix things. So find out what was wrong, try to fix that, and then resume the tasks that were affected. And you should, at the end of the day, you should be fine and be able to operation the Foratel the next decade. Okay, so as a developer, the most valuable information from the task, we'll switch here. Okay, I will switch to other tasks that already failed. The most valuable information is in the error. So copy pasting just this page as it is, it should point us to the right direction of what went wrong. We are also able to determine what the pulp, for example, responded as the error. So if I go here in history, if I find something from the state where the pulp was operating correctly, okay, so this might be it. Also, here I got the 500 error, which is not that helpful, but if you connect that with the information of started at and ended at, we are able to find the right logs from the logs from the pulp and figure out what went wrong. So definitely the errors page is the most valuable thing. And if the task is still running, then the running task is good as well, so that we can find out what got stuck. Okay, other questions. Monitor task is always on because it's protected by the authorization, or at least authentication. The authorization is still a work in progress, but unlike the Dynaflow console, this is the part of the foreman UI, and that's why it's available. Okay, so I might read too low. Yeah, so definitely I can imagine some link to copy paste or ideally open the Bugzilla for something or Albert, but given the time frame, I would like to get this the sooner the later. There are some pull requests open against the foreman task. I will open another one to give us more information. There are two pull requests open against Katello to make the manifest import and repository sync skippable. I will open another one to be able to cancel the tasks. And there is also some improvement on the Dynaflow side to make this possible. So, any other questions? Okay, so if not, I don't know if there's something else or somebody else doing some deep dive.
That roughly concludes all of the presentations. Given that we have a few minutes left, I'd like to briefly show the state of our next upstream release with respect to the issues that have been assigned to it. You recall me mentioning that Justin tried to go through and mark a number of issues should be considered as required to release an upstream release. Over the past couple of days, I've attempted to go through every untriaged issue, and especially the ones in 1.5, and verify whether or not they were still real issues. Sorry, those are the ones. And so I'm looking at the original count. It started at 73. If I filter that down to open bugs, it's sitting at 38. And I've attached all of them to the current sprint, so we can keep an eye on them as active items. One question for us would be to verify whether or not we think that these are constitute blockers for releasing an upstream, as well as consider whether or not this is the full list. So the other thing I want to mention is that in the process of trying to triage all of the bugs, that we had, whereby my goal was, again, to verify, get an idea whether it was an actual bug or something that had been resolved and mark it as triaged if it was an actual bug. And then through that process, try to assign to the sprint as a marker for the moment any bugs that seem like they might be big bugs or issues. And like I said, so I assigned those to Sprint 32. So this encompasses ones assigned to Katello 1.5 and is ones that potentially could be, we may want to also consider for 1.5. consider that we have enough time to try to go through these as a team and yay or nay them, or move them out. But I'm going to try to talk to or work with a few people maybe to try to figure out what we should trim down to or which of these we should assign. But I wanted to make sure everyone was sort of aware if they looked at Sprint 32 why it's so huge, and that there are issues on it that should be paid attention and considered, such as a good example of one that we sort of forgot about and is just kind of lingering is like Rel 5 clients and their ability to register, and the fact that we don't have any checking or verifying that, and we don't actually know if they work. As well as some of the organ location bugs that we identified and created but never sort of slipped past our tracking mechanisms. Yeah, that is my point. My whole goal here to again just give a brief overview of sort of where we stand, some of the things I tried to do, and items that we have. The total number of open issues that we have is in the lower 200s. It's not actually that bad, considering where it was before. I think it was in the upper 300s or 400s almost. So we had a lot of things that we fixed. Oh, all right. Unless anybody has any comments or questions regarding that area, then we will call this deep dive and review a day. Thanks for presenting and coming. See ya.